Hey, welcome to Bear Mountain today. It is a late winter day in February. Beautiful sunny day today. It's about 60. And it is time for us to plant some cuttings that we started last year. We did some pussy willows, some curly willow, and some different dogwoods. So what I wanted to explain today was how we're doing these guys potted up. And it's a little different than what most people do. So let's take a look and see how we do it. So anyway, on this beautiful late winter day, everybody's out mowing their yards today, and we're going to be a little different. We're going to be planting things. We're using a technique that is different than most people. Most people would take a potted tree like this and either pot it up into a larger pot, waiting for maybe the sapling to get a little bigger, or they would simply just pull it out of the pot and transplant it, maybe massage the roots a little bit and let it go. We're going to apply a Korean natural farming approach, which is radically different than what most people do. And what they do on something that's grown in a pot is the idea is to free the roots. In other words, if you look at the roots on this guy, it's pretty much all around the edge of the pot and all that. So it's kind of wrapped itself around. The idea in the Korean natural farming is to get the roots free and let them you want to stress them out a little bit. This is the part that gets weird, is once you get the dirt off of it, you can wash it off with water, massage it off a little bit with your hands first, and then rinse them off really good till there's nothing but roots on here and the soil from the potting is totally gone. And then the next step is to let these guys dry out for anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. You're trying to get them to the point where the roots themselves actually feel dry to the touch. Not bone dry, left out in the sun to fry, but sat in the shade and let them just sit for about 24 hours and dry out. And then the following step is, then we treat it with the KNF solutions, and we'll talk about that as we get a little further in it. So I just wanted to start with the first process today, which was getting all these guys. We've got 15 of them here that we want to get planted in the next day. So this whole process will take us about 2 days to prep the plants, and so we'll be planting them a couple days from now. And so it's really kind of easy. I'm just going to take this first tree where I pulled it out, and again, these guys were all started from just branch cuttings last year, and I'm just going to massage the dirt off of this guy. And you can kind of feel that the roots have actually they're a little bit fibrous, but they've also kind of wrapped around the way the pot was, because they grew in that pot basically from the moment they began to put roots out. So the roots are kind of really mixed up, and if you lose a few roots, it's not that big of a deal. So what we'll do is get off as much as can from massaging it. You can see there's nice fibrous roots here. I'm not trying to bust these guys off, I'm just trying to get the dirt off of them. So I got most of it that I can get off by hand by gently massaging it. Then I'll just take a hose on a strong spray and rinse the rest of the dirt off. Ready? What we're doing is we're just gently massaging it while we rinse off the excess dirt. And really trying to get all the dirt from the potting mix off of it. Okay, so here we are. This is the root system. You can already see that it's a little bit coming out of dormancy. There's a few root tips that are starting to grow. But the whole idea now is what we're going to do is we're just going to set this out to the air and let it air dry for about probably somewhere based on this root mass, probably somewhere around 12 to 15 hours. So it'll be ready tomorrow morning to go into the second step of applying the KNF solutions to it. But we basically got all the potting mix off, and that's the first step. Okay, it's been 24 hours, and we're now ready to move on to the next phase of treating our seedling saplings before we plant them. This is the part in the KNF where we apply solutions to help basically stimulate root development and help with creating some biology around the roots at the time we're planting. So what we're going to do first is we're going to give these guys, since these guys are relatively small in terms of the root system, we're going to give them about a 4-hour soak in what's called a seed enhancing solution, or SES. Well, that's a big fancy word for adding a couple of additives. We're going to add a biostimulant called fermented plant juice made out of comfrey, and we're going to add some brown rice vinegar, and basically to help with acidity. And then we're going to add oriental herbal nutrient, which has garlic, ginger, licorice, cinnamon, and angelica in it, as this is a tincture of all these items. And what that is it's anti-pathogenic, so it'll help prevent fungal infections of the roots themselves. By laying the plants out for 24 hours, what we've done is we have the root system, so it's pretty much dry to the touch. It's got maybe just a little bit of dampness to it. The plant itself isn't harmed, and so it should be really well poised to take up the solution that we're going to make for it. So we have two buckets here of 2 gallons of water in it. This is non-chlorinated water, so if you're taking this off of a city well, or city, I shouldn't say well, but city water, it's chlorinated, you're going to want to let that stuff set. You don't want to use tap water straight out that has chlorine or amines in it or anything of that nature. This is well water. Rainwater works well too. So for 2 gallons, what we're going to apply is, on the fermented plant juice, it works out to being a ratio of 1 to 500, which is approximately about 16 milliliters, or just a little bit more than 1 tablespoon for 2 gallons. So that's what I'm going to put in here, is 1 tablespoon in each one of these guys. Make sure I get a full tablespoon. And what this is it's fermented plant juice, which is comfrey that we made last fall. We keep this in the fridge, so that's why we have an aerated lid on it, because it does actually have some biology in it. Just going to make sure it's nice and well mixed up. All right, that's the first item we're going to put in. Let me just get this out of the way. And we'll apply the brown rice vinegar to the same ratio, which is, again, about 1 to 500, or approximately 1 tablespoon for 2 gallons.
What does the vinegar do?
It acts as helps with ionization of the water. It kind of helps add a little acidity to it, which helps with the transport of the other 2 items actually into the cell tissues themselves. The last thing we're going to add is OHN. This stuff is pretty potent, so what we're going to end up doing is putting in this in a dilution ratio of 1 to 1,000, or which ends up being 4 milliliters per gallon, or approximately 8 milliliters. We're going to err on a little bit less. We're going to take a teaspoon and a half, which is going to be approximately 7.5 mil for each one of these guys. Remember, I have 2 gallons in here. So I'll put 5 in here. 5 in here. And then, okay, we have 5 in each one. Then we're going to put 2.5 milliliters in here, which is 1/2 teaspoon. And do the same thing in that one. And that's all there is to the solution itself. We're just going to kind of make sure we stir it around again.
Doesn't look like there's anything in there.
No, it dissolves. It's pretty dilute, but it's enough for the plants. And so this one bucket here, we're going to put all of our dogwoods into it. We can pack these guys pretty close. Okay, we're going to make sure that all of the seedlings in here, we can kind of pack these guys in pretty close, but the objective here is to make enough mix that it's covering the entire root systems of these guys. And all these root systems feel, just kind of like fairly dry to the touch, which means they've pretty much kind of had a chance to be a little stressed. Okay, so what this looks like is kind of like a dark mass, but all the roots are in the system. No, Callie, you can't be drinking it. I know it smells good, but you can't do that, bud. And we'll set this aside for about 4 hours. That should be good enough to get the roots well rehydrated and get the plants to draw all that in. So we do that with both. The other one we'll do here, which these guys in the curly willow actually have kind of a smaller root system. And so they kind of a little bit easier to put in to make sure that we've got them all covered up. So this is the second phase. Like I said, we let it sit for about 4 hours, and then the trees will be ready to plant. And when we get to that, we'll show you how we're going to do that. There's a little bit of a twist that we're adding to that too, to kind of give more biology to the tree. Right now, it's absorbing, biostimulant from the FPJ. It's getting treated with the anti-pathogenous OHN, and the brown rice vinegar is just kind of helping the absorption of all of that. So it's just a way to give these guys a bit of a head start. Okay, we've let the sapling soak for 4 hours in the seed solution, and now we're ready to plant. These don't have really super deep root systems, so we're not having to dig a super deep hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these guys on 4-foot centers. It's 8 foot away from our other row, which is over there is pussy willows. This row over here will start with our dogwoods. And how we do this is we're going to add some urban compost into the hole, kind of work it in. And then we have worm castings that we're going to put around the plant roots when we stick those guys in. And as well as we made some tea from our own captured IMO, which is indigenous microorganisms. These were a capture that was done around maple trees, so it should have a lot of good stuff for trees itself. So what we're going to do is first we'll put the compost in, treat with a little bit of the IMO, take we keep our saplings in the solution until we're ready to plant. We'll stick these guys in the ground, throw worm castings over the top, and then water it in with a little more IMO and a little bit of the seed solution. Push dirt around it and leave a compost mulch of the urban waste compost on the top, and then just move on. It's not super complicated, but this is just the final thing. The important thing is we're inoculating it with good biology from worm castings, good biology from our IMO capture, and we gave these guys a really good soak with some biostimulants that should help you get the roots out and get established. So let's just plant one and see what it looks like. Okay, so we got the planting hole composted. We're going to put about a cup of the IMO in here. The whole point, maybe a little more, the whole point on this thing is not so much that we're trying to soak it, we're just trying to get an inoculation in here. Take one of our plants, you can see the roots, they're all rehydrated up nicely. I'm going to stick it in, make sure the roots are kind of laying out so they're got a good place to go. I got a blackberry here. Putting some worm castings over the top. Also going to treat it with a cup of the solution it was in, just for good graces. And then basically at this point we just put the sod back around it and make sure that there's dirt around the top of the roots.
Are you going to eventually kill the sod around these?
Yeah, the way that's going to happen is our next step is we're going to put a straw and old hay, rotting hay mulch down the row. And then in the pathways, it's going to be treated like a chop and drop. In other words, we'll be planting various different cover crop seeds in here. And as they get to size, we'll chop them off and throw them on to the row here, and that'll just be a continuous mulch. So yeah, by over the next month, as our temperatures warm up, we'll make sure we get a mulch over the top of these guys to make sure that we retain moisture.
You're not tarping it or anything?
No, we don't need to do that at this point. This should be perfectly fine. We'll put, like I said, mulch around the base of the plant, which I'll do right now. Okay, so then we just kind of tamp down around the plant, make sure that that's done. I'm going to throw a little more of the IMO just around the base of the plant itself. A couple cups. And another cup of the seed solution. That should all go down around the plant itself. It should be good to go.
So we have irrigation on here too, right?
Right. We can run drip lines down each side of the plant.
Because
we're probably going to do that for the first year so that that it has enough moisture.
Because there is a line right there by that one.
Right. So I use these 4-foot fence rods to kind of figure out where I'm going to go next. Then I'll just put a mark here, dig my next hole, and repeat.
How many you got?
Okay, we're going to be putting in 30 of these things today, so I'm going to have to really get on it.
Yeah, we got a storm coming.
Yeah. So I appreciate you guys watching today, and this is just, how we're attempting to integrate Korean natural farming practices in. If you want to learn more about the seed enhancing solution, Chris Trump does a really good video on it. Be sure to check out his site. That's where we got all this information, so credit goes to him. And I think it should give these guys a really good start. And thanks for watching today, and well, hope you all have a good day. Bye-bye.
Hey.